Welcome to Healthy University, where we'll discuss issues and subjects on how you can live a healthier and more productive life. And now, here's your host for Healthy University, Alan Eisenberg.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Healthy U. This is your host, Alan Eisenberg, and today I have a very special guest. I have Tina Meier, and on October 16th, 2006, Tina Meier's life took a devastating turn when her 13-year-old daughter, Megan Taylor Meier, took her own life after being cyberbullied by an adult neighbor posing as a fictitious boy named Josh Evans on MySpace. In December of 2007, Tina Meier founded the Megan Meier Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to support and inspire action to end bullying, cyberbullying, and suicide. Welcome to the show, Tina.
Thank you for having me, Alan. I appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I know, I always say empathy is a big thing, and there's probably, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that can have empathy for you, but it's an amazingly devastating story. And as I was telling you before the show, I finished a book last year that I utilized sort of the character study of the woman who was involved in Megan's story, but I can't do it justice. So would you mind sharing the story in a little more depth with us?
Sure. So my daughter Megan was born on November 6th of 1992, and Megan was, this normal everyday kid, but she struggled self-worth definitely. And Megan was a little bit of a bigger girl, really more bigger boned, not overweight, but she saw that very quickly when she was in kindergarten, would compare herself to the other girls, and anytime they would say anything, Megan took it to heart. Megan in third grade was struggling quite a bit, diagnosed with depression and attention deficit disorder. We did seek therapy and medication. Megan went into middle school. Seventh grade, pretty horrible. Had boys who started stomping behind her in the lunch line, calling her a fat cow and an elephant, to the point that Megan stopped eating lunch. Things got so bad that she would not sign up for gym. Grades dropped, begging me to get her out of school. And I switched her to a different school for her 8th grade year, just really to try to give her a fresh start. That's when the world of social media kind of started coming out in 2006, and at that time it was MySpace. So Megan, starting her new school, was doing really well, but begged for a MySpace account, and I was concerned about sexual predators, and I put a lot of rules in place. And Megan didn't like those rules, but she knew that the only way to get that account was to have mom's rules. Megan started her MySpace account, adding friends from her old school and new school, and getting ready for a huge 14th birthday party. And she was doing really well, and then got a friend request from a boy by the name of Josh Evans. And Megan, at 13, almost 14 years old, used the word hot very often. And in Megan's words, she was like, "Mom, can I please add him? He is so hot." And I said, "Megan, honey, do you know him?" "Friend of a friend." And she's like, "Mom, just what's the big deal? Please, can I add him?" I let Megan add him, and many people will question that. But when you're in a situation, you don't realize, or you don't get the hindsight. The reason I let her add him was because I knew my child, Megan, would have gone to a friend's house, to a neighbor's house, to a library, and she would have created a fake account to find out about Josh Evans. At least this way I could monitor it. And for the past 9 years, traveling all over the country, middle school and high school students, at least 2/3 across the board, will say they know somebody who has created a fake account to find out about somebody else. I didn't want that to happen. So Megan started talking to Josh. I monitored it for about 5 weeks. Nothing exciting was going on, except for he said, she was beautiful and had beautiful eyes and a great smile, asked about her day. It was just basic stuff. And then Sunday night, October 15th, 2006, Megan had 2 volleyball games that day. That evening, she signed on to MySpace and got a message from Josh out of the blue that said he did not want to be friends with her anymore. She was not a nice person. Megan said, "What are you talking about? Where are you getting this from?" And there's no response from Josh. So I told her it was time to sign off. It was late. The next day, October 16th, 2006, Megan gets up for school in a great mood. I drop her off. I pick her up that afternoon. She's in a great mood, laughing and smiling. And we get home, and she instantly wants to sign on to MySpace again. She wants to see, did Josh respond? What's going on? I signed her back on because I had her password. She did not have her password to the account. And Megan got messages that said, from Josh, saying, "You heard me. No one likes you. No one wants to be friends with you." Now Megan started saying, "Why are you saying this? I'm not mean unless somebody is mean to me." Now Josh had 2 other girls involved, and the messages that went back and forth were horrendous. Then they used your name. They didn't hide behind anonymous accounts as far as, even if they did, they would throw your name out, where now they don't do that. And it was Megan Meier is a fat blank, Megan Meier is a whore. Those were about the nicest things going out. My daughter now is getting upset, and I had in the meantime left to go to the orthodontist office to take my younger daughter. I told Megan to sign off before all of this stuff started. Unfortunately, she didn't. And when I got home, I saw these things starting to go back and forth. One of the things I saw was, after they were saying all these horrible things, Megan was now lashing out at them. And I said, "Megan, honey, come on, I talked to you about this. You know better than to go back and forth. The war of words never works." I said, "Meg, any of these things that they're calling you." And Megan said, "You're supposed to be my mom. You're supposed to be on my side." She took off running upstairs to her room. I went to go talk to her dad in the kitchen, and probably 20 minutes later, I just had this horrible feeling that ran through my entire body. I ran upstairs, opened the door, and found Megan hanging in her closet. We called 911. The paramedics arrived and got her heart started and her to breathe with assistance. But Megan was transported to Children's Hospital in St. Louis and passed away 24 hours later. About 5 weeks after Megan passed away, we found out that that boy, Josh Evans, was actually an adult neighbor, Lori Drew, who lived 4 houses down the street, her daughter, Sarah, who had been friends with Megan since the 4th grade, and an 18-year-old girl that was kind of a family friend that worked out at mom's house part-time. These 3 created that account because they thought Megan was talking about her daughter behind her back. It wasn't an intent that Megan was going to take her own life, but those are the tragedies when you create these accounts and you start talking about somebody or fooling somebody. And unfortunately, they thought it was funny in a game, and it turned out to not be so funny. That's kind of where my journey, the day my child took her last breath, and I started finding out more about this world of cyberbullying. It has been my mission and passion to travel all over the world and to really speak about these issues, to hopefully not have another child, a family, suffer through this, that we can provide resources and education and support for families all over the world.
It's of course a great mission, and as I said to you before we started, there's just no words. The story touched me at such a deep level when I first read it, and you don't know my story, but I run a company called Bullying Recovery because for 30 years I wasn't recovered from the bullying that happened to me, and I feel pretty lucky to be alive today, and I'm only alive because I got out of that situation at just the right time. We moved. But, I certainly understand, that feeling of losslessness that I know these teens feel. And of course, Megan is only one of way too many young people who choose to take their own lives for the wrong reasons because someone did something. But what's so, crazy, what's just so dramatic to me about Megan's story that is like nobody else's is Lori Drew, and what would lead an adult to take on doing what she did and then follow on with the court case that I know I followed, religiously, and what happened. Why, have you ever come to terms with why you think she did what she did?
It's really hard to get in the mind of somebody who is, I feel that mental illness and people who are psychopaths are completely different. So, I hate saying, this person had a mental illness, because it puts anybody who has depression or bipolar in this place of where people can do horrific things. But I really, in my heart, believe Lori Drew is a true psychopath. I think that Lori felt that what she was doing was not that big of a deal. She has said that. She thought that, I think a lot of it was she felt that Megan was not being a good friend to Sarah. It was a way to get her back. And how do you get in the mind of an adult who thinks it's funny to play games with children,
Yeah.
and their emotions, especially when this family knew what Megan had gone through. They knew we had switched schools. They knew the bullying that she went through, that she was going through therapy, and still on top of it. So, I spent a long time trying to figure out why, and then realizing that I will probably never get an answer that would ever make sense to me.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think, I am hoping that this story helps any parent that ever thinks it's okay to do that to another child, to realize absolutely it's never okay. And again, there's a lot of people in this world that do pretty horrific things to children, and I don't know how to reason that out either. Anybody in a majority of normal people in this world would never, ever do that.
Yeah, well, and it goes back, some of the things I say, like we're seeing these crazy things happening with, of course, men abusing women, and finally women are coming forward. But, I particularly think of the Kevin Spacey one where, he's basically accused of pedophilia, and he comes out and he says, well, I'm gay. And for me, that was like so destructive. Just like you missed the whole point. And I'm so glad the LGBTQ community came out and called him on it. It's like,
good, yes.
But that's what we're not doing. We're not, the accountability, and I guess, I'll let the cat out of the bag that Lori got kind of off scot-free, right? There was no law that they could hold her under.
Right. No, there were no laws in the state of Missouri, and we went to a federal trial in Los Angeles. And the reason is that MySpace's headquarters were based there. And the U.S. attorney the federal grand jury indicted Lori Drew on 4 charges of hacking, computer hacking, and then also violating the terms of service. But we did go through the trial, and the jury did find her guilty on 3 misdemeanors only. But the judge ultimately, threw the case out, overturned it, stating that too many people lie on social networking sites, that it would be unconstitutional to convict her because people lie about their age and their name and etc. So at the end of the day, while Lori Drew never went to jail, the thing is that her life as she knew it is destroyed, and it's destroyed by her own doing. This isn't anything that I went out and did. They were here in Missouri and just bought, I sold them their house. She had a business, and everything that she knew, their business got shut down because when the story went public, people found out about it, who she was, and they got her business shut down. They had to sell their house and move to a different state. But even after that, she had to go using a middle name. She couldn't use her first name.
Yeah.
So things like that, again, I realized that I couldn't stay, which I did. I did stay in that hate and anger and vengeance period for probably a good 2 years. But then I realized that I couldn't live like that anymore. I mean, I just physically couldn't. And so for me, I had to really focus and realize that Megan's life was more than this situation. And so for me, it was, I am putting anything and everything I have into this foundation to try to make a difference. And it's the only way I know how to survive.
Yeah.
I don't know how to survive any other way.
Yeah, and I I'm the father of two boys, and certainly we had a couple of bullying incidents, but nothing like my own personal story. But you just kind of shocked me by telling me sort of the end result of Lori Drew that I didn't know about the federal court, and of course her having to hide, which is
right.
When I wrote my book, that's kind of how one character's ending happens. The same idea, and it's just like it's not just one life that's getting ruined, it's all lives getting ruined. Your life, her life, her children's lives, and that's the part that just is such a struggle to understand. It's not going to come out that oh, it was a joke, I'm sorry. That doesn't cut it. And that whole concept that people even think that way, that they can say whatever they want and then go, oh, it's a joke. And when you're hurting people and you just don't know, I always say you don't know what happens behind closed doors. One of my good friends was Chris McCandless, who Into the Wild, if you know that story of him. Well, he was abused at home, and I was friends with him through high school. I mean, I never knew anything going on in his life. It was a person I had no idea about, and then I learned about in a movie and book. And I think that's what we all have to remember. We have to take a very quick break, but when we come back, I'd just like to hear how you've been pursuing your mission with the foundation and the great work you're doing. So if you'll hold on, Tina, this is Alan Eisenberg. We'll be back more with some more Healthy You.
You're listening to Healthy University with Alan Eisenberg. Bullying is in the headlines every day. Now, there's a website to provide you information, blogs, podcasts, research, and links to learn more about how bullying can have long-term effects to the survivors and the bullies. Visit bullyingrecovery.org and learn more about how you can help yourself and others. Book our team for your anti-bullying events. Everyone deserves to live the life they want and overcome the past. Bullyingrecovery.org, helping people learn to thrive after bullying trauma.
Hi, and welcome back to More Healthy You. I'm here with Tina Meier, who lost her daughter, Megan, in 2006 due to cyberbullying and bullycide. And we've been just chatting, really. Tina's been sharing her story, but Tina's gone on since... When did you start the foundation? Almost right away, right?
Actually, just 10 years ago this week.
Yeah.
So December of 2007 is when the foundation... So it was a little bit over a year after Megan died is when the foundation was started. So
give me an idea, like when you started it, I can't even imagine, I know I would need some sort of cathartic release, and I imagine that's why I do what I do. That's why I started Bullying Recovery, right? Was because I needed something to work past the things that happened to me. So how has it started, and how has it evolved for you now 10 years later, which again, what I like to say is we can forgive, but we can never forget. Right. So there is no forgetting, and particularly in difficult situations like you're in. So where have you been able to take it now?
So, starting the foundation, there was really not a big grand plan. I think I was still in so much grief and struggling through so much that I knew I wanted to do something to help kids. I just had no clue where to start, where to begin. I was lucky I was getting up and brushing my teeth and getting my other daughter to school, and let alone running this. So I had an aunt who was really my backbone, who continued to keep pushing me forward and helping me get really the legal documents and get everything together. From that, I was asked to speak at a superintendent's conference. It was school insurance that provides liability insurance to schools. So I was asked to come speak, and I had no clue what I was going to say. But I cried through a lot of it and shared Megan's story. And from that, really started getting schools that wanted me to come to their school to share. Mm-hmm. And I started from that. And really, it kind of happened. It was kind of laid down, and I just followed that path. To date, we've been to 38 different states and, spoke to students in public and private, suburban, rural, inner city, juvenile detention centers, residential centers, parents and educators. And, our mission is to support and inspire actions to end bullying. Cyberbullying and suicide. And so, again, a lot of it is learning. Each and every day I learn and we grow, and we try to find different ways to connect with people, keeping up with the technology and the laws and all of the things that are happening. But in the end, our overall piece, no matter where we go, is really trying to instill a piece of empathy, trying to instill what you talked about, which was, we never know what that other person that's sitting next to us or walking down the hall, we don't know their story. We don't know what they've gone through. So when we use our words just to be negative or horrible or just to belittle them or go online just to talk about them, we have no clue the impact that those words can have because we don't know their story. And so we really talk a lot about that. But, a lot of us, our programs are not, how dare you and don't do this and don't do that. A lot of it is everything that I have learned from students all over the country and what they're needing, what they're wanting, and really trying to empower that piece so that students feel that they have ownership. They can start making some decisions and choices. Yeah. And so those are things that we really try to build on. But, I just today spoke to a residential care facility for middle school and high school students, and these are kids that suffer trauma and severe trauma in their home lives or foster care systems. And, trying to build empathy with these kids, you have to go about it in a different way. So I think that even sometimes some of the most broken children, you can still find a way to get them to recognize what they're going through, but also getting them to then be compassionate, give that other person a little bit of a chance before we automatically jump down somebody's throat. And again, it's love and kindness versus hatred and judgment. And so it's been an amazing journey. I look back 10 years and I'm thinking, I don't know how you get to this point. But I do know that there's another 10, another 20, another 30 years ahead, that we have tons of ideas, and we want to keep expanding, and we want to live in a world. We know there's always going to be conflict. Yeah. There's always going to be those types of situations, but we also want to make sure that we've got the right tools and the education and awareness so that kids know how to be able to deal with it, educators know how to support, parents know how to support, and we can work together so that they have other outlets. And
I'm glad you brought up a couple of those things because obviously I do bullying recovery, and that's much different than anti-bullying, right? And I always tell people that. I say, we've got to start looking at things holistically. It's not just bringing in a speaker to say bullying's bad, like you were saying. That's not going to cut it. And bringing someone like you in to actually tell a story, that's how I started as a storyteller. And it was the same thing. I mean, I would go and I would cry my eyes out in front of people. And, that's when I realized I was not healed, and as you know, in your 10-year journey, healing is a long process. For the children.
I'll heal throughout life.
Right. Yeah. Everyone asks me, when are you going to be over this bullying thing? And I tell them when the 6 feet under thing happens, that's it. I'm not planning to ever be over it. It's a part of who I am, and it's what I do. And I'm blessed with being what's called a highly sensitive person, who just feel so much. And that's why I was picked on, right? It's why a lot of children are picked on, is because we're sensitive. You make fun of us, we cry. You make a joke and we laugh. And it took me 30 years to discover that's who I was. Because I wanted to deny it terribly. I wanted to pretend to be something else. And even when I was doing my bullying work, it was like, I want to pretend. And there is no pretending. And I think that's one of the things that's come out of you and Mr. Halligan and Mr. Smalley, all telling stories about their children and bully side. That's got to be one of the most difficult things to do. I used to think what I did was difficult, but being on your side of the fence is, I think, a much harder place to be. So what are you seeing? Like, what have been some of the responses that have surprised you when you've gone to all these places and told your story?
I think I, along with many people, before I went into schools and really talked to such a diverse group of students all over the country, thought, kids can be so mean, and they don't think about anything. They don't care about anybody but themselves. And while, yes, we have a portion of our society that are very self-centered and don't think or care what they say to other people, but most of the time I find that these kids really are, when you talk to them openly, because like I say, listen, going to a school, me coming in to speak, and you think that's going to fix the school, I'm sorry, don't waste your time and money.
Right.
Because that's not going to fix a school. It can be part of a bigger approach within a school. It can be part of a approach that you're going to do through the school or student activity, but has to be a much longer, much bigger picture for it to truly be sustainable. But I think that when you get students empowered and you talk with them, not at them,
mm-hmm.
and I think that you can get them, and so they will come up and say, listen, we've heard a million of these things, and we rolled our eyes and we thought, great, here we go again, another lecture. And they're like, but you made it real, and it made a difference. Or, you get the kids who have said, I felt like you were telling my story. You were telling Megan's story, but I sat there, and everything you were saying, I felt like you were telling my story. So thank you. I think sometimes it's the amazing part of these kids that don't speak out and don't use their voice. And then when they finally feel like somebody is listening and it connects, you then have these kids that then will start coming out and talking about it. They will reach out and ask for help. And to me, that can be some of the most powerful things, because if we can start creating dialogue and
mm-hmm.
start getting the kids who are struggling to be able to use their voice, and we can get somewhere then. It's been, yes, I have heard the stories of, I was in a mall several months ago, and I was with my other daughter she wanted to try on a dress, and I was there, and one of the sales clerks said, "Oh my gosh, I know you."
Mm.
And I said, "You do?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh my God." And she started crying and said, "You came to my school several years ago." And she'd said, I was at the point, I was so broken and so low that you talking and sharing that story saved my life. And I think it's really hard for me to take that, because
mm-hmm.
I don't, even though I know that I'm not physically doing anything, I always think, and I don't think I'm some grandstanding person. I think that I follow my path, and I always hope that I can make a difference. And then you hear those stories and you're so taken back. You're like, wow, really? And it's very humbling to me, because I'm thinking, if through that I could have helped that one girl go out and ask for help and get support, and that's my whole purpose, then this is why I'm doing it. And so it continues to validate why so many other people do it. It's not the money, it's not the grandstanding. It is nothing other than trying to do something positive out of things you can't change from the past.
Right.
It's the only way I know how to breathe.
Boy, you just said everything I think, and I've been saying it for a long time. It's like, I always tell people, I say this show that I've made, you're my 77th guest, is my therapy. I just this is what I do. I want to talk and I want to share and I want people to hear, and I write, and I've had sort of the same thing, right? People tell me, you saved my life, or you've written a story about what happened to me. Well, now I realize, it wasn't just me. It was never just me. As you know, it's not just Megan. There's people identifying, and if there's not something good to come out of bad with the internet, there are some great places to go. And now there's so much patient advocacy out there, and we're soon going to break the stigma of mental health. We're going to do that, and people will be able to. Yes, and that's one of my things. As I'm mentally healthy. But years ago I wasn't, and that's validation. You can't hold me accountable to getting better and to wanting to get better. And if it's something that we really have to change. We're just about out of time, but I have two questions that I ask all my guests. One of them you'll want to answer, and the other one's a little tougher. But it is a show about being healthier, and each of us has a way that we cope and we live a healthier life. What since, let's just say, the 10 years that you've been doing this, what are you doing now that you weren't doing before to keep yourself healthier in your mind, in your body, whatever?
I have to do it, which is trying to go in and impact everybody. And every time that of all of that, from every child's story to every situation, and it was so heavy that it hurt my chest. And realizing that if I keep doing that, I'm never going to be around to help any more kids. And so I really have to try to take a deep breath. And for me personally, I have to just, pray for strength for them to get all the help and the supports and reaching out that they can. And then I try to go on to the next, because holding it on and taking every situation and story it can be suffocating. And that's what, so those are things that I still have to work at. But it's what I do better than what I used to.
Yeah. And I think, as we were talking about, it's one step forward or two steps forward and one step back every day. And we don't set ourselves up for failure. We set ourselves up for acceptance, right? These are the things I say to myself every day, right? I'm always just looking for contentment, and any happiness I get is gravy. It's just extra on top. But so how can people get in touch with your foundation, with you? If they want to book you or work with you? Sure.
They can go to our website, which is meganmeierfoundation.org. It's MEGAN Foundation.org. Or they can call our office. It's area code 636-757-3501. Or they can email us, which is info@meganmeierfoundation.org. But we support families all over the world, just even if they have a question on how to be able to deal with bullying with their child or what's going on in school. We will provide them any resources or supports that we can. We don't charge for any of that.
Well, thank you, Tina. And, I mean it when I say this. I've been doing this since 2007, so almost as long as you have, or about what you have. And I've always wanted to have the opportunity to tell you how much the work you do and the fact that you continue on means to someone like me, who was on the other side, was on your daughter's side, and now works as an advocate for the children and for adults who still suffer to this day with the bullying that happened to them. So, as I tell people, I say, the ones who survive afterward, there's still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of issues that we're finding out, like that happened to me, that I had to work out. And so all of us together, are just working so hard. And it's like you said, it's never the money. You know, you wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for a situation. I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for a situation. This is what we do. This is the passion we found out of what was a destructive start. And I applaud you, and you have, of course, my company support at all times anything that I can ever do to help you with your mission and your work, because Megan's story touches me like probably nobody else's in terms of just the sheer, you know, it's like I say, if you make a movie about half of these stories, about half of my stories, people wouldn't believe it. And there it is, you know, it's like, wow, you know, how does, and I know you do that probably more often than I do. You go, how did all this happen?
Yes, absolutely. And there are days that you do think like, wait, this really was my life? That really did happen? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I
mean, I think about some of the things that kids did to me, and it's like, how did all that happen? And I'm sure we all, anyone who's involved in abuse of any type asks that often, I'm sure. But bullying certainly is something that's, I feel like, you know, the floodgates have finally opened with media. Now we need to get to the point of understanding and empathy, and that's teachable. Yeah. It's teachable, but it's got to be focused on. So I applaud you.
It just takes all of us together.
Yeah, and I applaud you for doing it, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate what you do and sharing your story and inviting me on, and I just appreciate it. So we'll stay in touch in the future, and we'll keep pushing forward, making a difference. Most
definitely, and thank you so much for your time and of course all the energy you put into the Megan Meier Foundation and the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
So this is Alan Eisenberg with Healthy You. Please join us next time.
Thank you for listening to Healthy University, brought to you by Bullying Recovery, LLC. This podcast does not replace the need for medical advice, professional diagnosis, opinion, treatment, or services to you or any other individual. The information provided here or through linkages to other sites is not a substitute for medical or professional care, and you should not use the information in place of a visit, call, consultation, or the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. Join us next time for more Healthy University.